Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with a brand new episode of Tex-Trek slash Drawn to Trek. I guess I got the wrong banner pulled up here. There we go.
Yeah, but
Okay,
we still
that
stand
looks
with them.
better.
It's
Yes,
accurate.
yes. Yeah, it's just it just looks flashier like this.
Yes.
But yeah, I think we're set up. I see that there's already a couple folks in the live audience, so we're going to be talking about
There,
some.
flashier.
There we go. We'll just all the flash we can get,
Yeah.
as long as Ezra Miller is not involved.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we have some wonderful lower decks to talk about. Season
Yes.
4 is not here quite yet, so this is our final week before the drop of season 4. We're going to talk about last year's season 3. So, Aaron, we can go ahead and get the show started. Oh, we can try our test run our new intro. Remember what we were talking about last night? We can give that a try.
Kinda.
I'll just say,
it'll be interesting.
I'll just say, and this is Tex-Trek, and then you say like, and Drawn to Trek too, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, let's give this a shot. I'm Fatheree.
I'm Aaron.
And this is Tex-Trek.
And it's also Drawn to Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 257th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we're talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, and this is also Drawn to Trek number
Episode
13.
13, so let's hope nothing goes wrong.
But yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun. I got Aaron here with me. We're really excited for Lower Decks Season 4. It doesn't start till next week, but in the meantime, we're going to take a moment to reflect back on Season 3, a Season 3 retrospective. So,
Exactly.
Everything from Freeman on trial for blowing up the Packlids, which he didn't really do in Grounded, all the way from that through Mariner's heroic return from Starbase 80 to help defeat the Texas-class ships in the Stars at Night. So
I have my Ketracel white hot sauce with me.
The white hot sauce, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's how it has hot on there twice, right?
It's that's why my brain went, wait, that's not right. Oh, no, that is right.
Yeah, I know, like, my dad, it's like a pet peeve with him if he hears someone say like hot water heater. He's like, it's just a water heater. The water is obviously hot. It's redundant to say hot water heater, but it's funnier to say
hot water heater is working.
It's funnier to say Ketracel white hot sauce.
Yes.
Just is. Before we get into that Season 3 talk, though, I do want to share a little bit of news. We got the big special 50th anniversary of Star Trek the Animated Series. Speaking of animated Trek, it's right around the corner next week.
Yes.
We're in a few days, depending on when you're watching or listening to this.
That's true. Do you want to talk about the 9th real quick?
Yeah. So yeah, we got big plans for that Saturday.
Let's not oversell it. No,
we have
Saturday,
medium-sized plans.
Yes, exactly. Saturday, September 9th, the day after the big day. It's Saturday, noon Pacific. We're going to have a stream where we're going to talk about the animated series. We're going to talk about how the strike in 1973, which sort of parallels the strike today, how that affected the quality of show that we got. We're going to have some special guests and just popping in, and we'll take questions from the audience or anything that you want to chat about related to TAS.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. We know there's also going to be like some official TAS celebratory things rolling
Yeah.
out on Paramount Plus the day before. So it
And not just that, but hopefully if it's out before then, there's something else we can talk about too.
yeah, and
Vague posting.
yeah, just vague it up.
Vague
Uh,
podcasting? I don't know how that works.
Also some Star Trek Day stuff per usual
Yes.
with Paramount. Every year they try to do something a little different. So if there's any announcements or anything, I'm sure there will be something, possibly like new trailers. We know we're getting a Lower Decks clip,
Right.
stuff like that. So whatever they reveal to us, we'll also cover that in addition to some of our own stuff that Aaron is putting together. So that should be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that. It's a big deal. It's a big, there's only the second time a Star Trek show has turned 50 years.
Yeah.
So I've never really thought about what that's just going to be like
I know,
life from now on. It's good. Like in a few years, we're going to have like the motion picture 50th. And then before, that'll be the one like makes us like really feel old is when TNG turns 50.
Yes.
But
I was
happen.
Somebody on Twitter is just like, no, that's not an important anniversary. It's the 57th anniversary of TOS. I'm like, yeah, but no one celebrates the 57th anniversary as a special anniversary. It's like in the 50th, like it's important. And like this person clearly did not like the animated series. I'm just like, okay, whatever. 2023 Aaron has learned to just ignore that. 2016 Aaron would have been like, got into a flame war for an hour.
Not worth it. Just scroll on by.
And also on September 8th, if you're in the Los Angeles area, from 9 to 11, I believe, at Paramount, no, 10 to noon at Paramount Studios is a Star Trek themed, everybody getting together to support the strike. So people probably come in uniforms. We're going to have there's going to be a lot of Star Trek people there. So
a Star Trek themed picket line.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
So that's going to be cool. I'm not going to be able to make it there myself, but I'm certainly looking forward to seeing the pictures that day.
Yeah, I'll try and get something we can show on the air either that night or the next day on the TAS stream.
Yeah, at the very least, we'll have your eyewitness report on how it went. So that's cool. And if you are in the Austin, Texas area, if you're watching this live on Friday, then tomorrow I will be at GalaxyCon. A lot of Trek actors are going to be there. William Shatner, Walter Koenig, Jonathan Frakes, LeVar Burton, Brent Spiner, Gates McFadden, Terry Farrell, Armin Shimmerman, Will Wheaton. So it's going to be pretty. I think Todd Stashwick also.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So a lot of people. Terry Metalis. And I thought it was canceled.
That's a lot of Trek people.
Yeah. GalaxyCon seems to like Trek, so I'm hoping we get like a big turnout. I hope like a lot of local people show up and see some of these Trek actors in person and show that like they should do Star Trek conventions in this part of Texas because we don't really get many these days. But I'll be there, and I'm also going to be doing a Star Trek animated series panel. I thought got canceled because
which was on and off and on.
Yeah, some scheduling communications, but no, it's back on. Me and Rachel will be there presenting some TAS. Just kind of a explanation of like that show, because a lot of people are still very like unaware of it and don't know much about it and haven't watched it, and just there's a lot of like, not only are there a lot of like really good Star Trek episodes in that show, but I think it just kind of has like an interesting story, the way like what Aaron was talking about, how the quality of that show largely had to do with a writer's strike going on back then 50 years ago. So stuff like that. And Dorothy Fontana's,
which sounds counterintuitive until you realize why it happened.
Yes. But yeah, and so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really looking forward to seeing like other Trekkies there. I don't know if I'll be in uniform. Maybe I'll dress up, but I think Rachel might as well.
What's your weather like? Is it going to be super hot?
I'm sure it's going to be like 103 degrees.
Okay, yeah. No one expects you to dress up.
Yeah, but is there anything else in the news? We got Star Trek Day. We got Lower Decks is premiering also this day before on the 7th. So
we're getting 2 episodes.
Wow.
So our Friday show will probably be slightly longer than normal too, because we'll be reviewing 2 episodes.
Yes. And in addition to that, Rachel and the gang on the Thursday First Reaction crew will be reacting to those first 2 episodes. So we'll have multiple streams. Yeah, we're gonna be streaming Thursday night, Friday night.
When do it comes out? Oh, yes, right. It come out Wednesday night and it's really Thursday. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I always think it's like, wait, how are you going to do a live stream? Oh, that's right.
So yeah, lots of content, lots of work, but I'm ready for it. I am looking forward to all of that.
I wish I could go see it. I'm sorry, I'm going to miss it.
Well, hopefully I do a good enough job that other conventions let me do more panels in the future. So maybe
Cool.
we'll have me and Aaron doing one together someday.
That'd be fun.
Creation, if you're listening, or anyone else. But I guess the last thing I got to mention is just I need to say thank you to the Tex-Trek Patreon supporters. It really means a lot to us when y'all are willing to commit to a monthly contribution. It goes a long way into helping us keep doing the show and cover the expenses doing it. We're going to have our monthly Patreon watch party on September 16th, I believe. Let me double check that date. Yes, so that's Saturday, December 16th, 3:30 p.m. Central. And part of the theme of animated Star Trek, we're going to be watching 2 of the animated series episodes. We're going to do Yesteryear, widely considered the favorite, best, greatest episode of the animated series. And that's going to be followed by the Slaver Weapon, aka the Kazinti episode, because that me is like the big weirdo. That's one of my favorite episodes of the animated series. I think a lot of other people like it too.
It's the Kirk free episode. It's the first episode of TOS or TAS that has no Captain Kirk in it.
Yeah, so it proved you can do Trek without William Shatner.
Don't say that online.
I'm sure Shatner never saw that episode because he only watched it. I doubt he's ever watched.
I don't think it's any of them.
Series,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, certainly,
that was
like,
the other reason. It's like we could interview him if we wanted to pay for it, but it's like, what's he going to say? Like, I remember talking about it. Goodbye. I don't think he had any stories really to tell about it. So
yeah, I've never.
He would have told them already. Yeah, exactly.
I don't really hear any of them talk about the animated series other than Nichelle and Walter were like and Jimmy Doohan because he was doing all the voices.
Right.
But yeah, those are I never hear Takei or Nimoy or DeForest Kelly or Shatner. None of them ever really talked about it, did they?
No. We wanted to get Nichelle, but she was, at that point having some health issues we wanted to interview her. But I did get her to tell me we were chatting about the episode and the Lorelei signal where she got to take command of the Enterprise, or Uhura did. And she's like, let me tell you a secret. And she like, motioned me to like lean in closer. And she was like, I've been trying to get back on that bridge since that day. So that was kind of cool that like Uhura, she, in her head, she's like, okay, Uhura is going to be a captain eventually, which is cool because she did in the chronology. Now we know that from Picard.
Yeah, Picard established.
So she made it back into the chair.
If you read what's on those little dedication plaques in Picard season 2, we know that Uhura commanded the first starship that when John Luke left his solar system, when he became the first member of the Picard family to leave the solar system, it was under the command of Captain Uhura. So really cool bit of lore. And I actually put that in my notes for my panel tomorrow, Aaron. I was going to mention one of the contributions of the animated series was putting Uhura in the captain's chair for the first time and what that meant to Nichelle Nichols.
Twice, actually.
So, yeah.
She didn't literally sit in it, which I kind of disappointing, but she,
well, in command
next
of the ship,
to it.
But
yeah, for sure. I wanted to see her in the chair. I thought that would have been kind of cool, but
they would have drawn like a new. That would have been expensive, to put her in the chair.
I'm trying to think of like what pose that existed already would that work with. None of them. Okay, let's move on.
Because like the angle of Uhura when she's sitting at the communication station probably like wouldn't work for the captain's chair. It's like
that's probably why she's standing next to it when they do it. That makes sense.
But some captains like to stand up when they're in command. Like some never sit down. Like I think Jason Isaacs as Lorca, like the first episode of him on Discovery, like he's never in the chair. He's just he's like walking around on the bridge.
I think that was a choice, right?
He
acting choice.
He said he needed to acclimate to being the make believe captain on a starship before he could actually sit in the chair. It's like easier to believe.
He's a make believe captain of it's twofold because he isn't really the captain of the the Discovery either.
Oh yeah, that might have been. He might have been thinking like, oh yeah, I'm an actor playing a guy who's also acting a role.
Acting. Yep.
You get like Inception acting, like layers on layers. Uh, that's interesting. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I got for housekeeping. So
Yep.
Aaron,
Hashtag save Star Trek Prodigy.
I can't say that enough. But yeah,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be talking about animated Star Trek if we didn't also mention hashtag save Star Trek Prodigy. Let's get that show home. So Lower Deck season 3. I can quickly recap the season forever. I actually just rewatched it this week. I believe Aaron did as well.
Same.
A couple
Yep.
of times, right?
A couple of the episodes I watched more than once, but yeah, like
Okay. Just to refresh it on everyone's memory, because I know a lot of people, it might have been a while since they've seen it. I'm just gonna list the 10 episodes of season 3 and kind of give like a quick like one sentence explanation of each. But we start with the season premiere. Grounded picks up where season 2 left off with Freeman arrested. That's where they steal the Phoenix to save Freeman, and it turns out the Federation was so good they didn't even need to do that. The system works in the future. Uh, Episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game. That's where we get Bold Boimler. I mean, he volunteers to be Karanch, the hunter.
I love him.
Hunter his prey. Yeah. Also, while that's going on, Mariner and Ransom are having to repair the orbital lifts. Don't call them space elevators; they're orbital lifts. And Rutherford and Billups almost get thrown into a volcano. Episode 3, Mining the Mines, which is always hard to say, but that is where they have that joint mission with the Carlsbad, the other California class ship. They're having to clean up the psychic green basketballs.
It's very
TAS
TOS
reference. Yeah, it's very very TOS, and we get like the big TAS shout out with Kukulkan. Episode 4. Yeah, we got that on Aaron's 50th anniversary badge.
Yeah. Except they mispronounced it. He said
Kukulkan.
yeah, a Culkin. Yeah, it's like no, it's not a Culkin. It's like, which is weird because Mike was really like he pointed it out to me. I'm just like, yeah, but he didn't pronounce it right. Oh, okay. And then he was like moving on. It's like I think he realized that. Oh yeah, that isn't right, is it?
Yeah, it's Steve Stevens got it wrong, but for all we know, everyone else knew how to say it right.
Right.
We got episode 4, Room for Growth. That's where Billups and the engineering team have to go to the spa to be less stressed and working all the time, and the lower deckers compete with Delta Shift for better quarters. Episode 5, Reflections. That's the Red Rutherford stuff. We get the backstory on Rethy's implant. Episode 6, that's the big DS9 episode, and Tindy saves the day with her Orion pirate heritage. Episode 7, A Mathematically Perfect Redemption. That's the Peanut Hamper return, and we see Peanut Hamper break Rada's heart on the Areolas planet. Episode 8, Crisis Point 2, Paradoxus. That was Boimler's Starfleet movie sequel to Mariner's Crisis Point episode in season 1. And the season ended with a 2-parter, Trusted Sources and the Stars at Night. That was all the Mariner's banishment and return to Starbase 80 stuff. The Breen showed up. They blow up one of the planets from the TNG episode Symbiosis. You got the FNN news reporter lady, Mariner doing Indiana Jones stuff with Petra for a hot minute, and we end with the big climactic battle of the California class fleet versus the Texas class starship. So that was season 3.
That's it. Goodbye. No. Well, yeah, it was great because there's a really nice overarching theme of like trusting and trusting your companions, your coworkers, the system. Like obviously not every system needs to be trusted, but Starfleet does.
Yeah, like putting trust in the people around you, or I guess like learning to like open up and rely on people, or it's okay to like expose your vulnerabilities around like your crew, your family,
and you don't have to do everything yourself.
Yes,
like that's still something I have problems with if I'm doing a big project and other people are supposed to be helping me and it's like not moving forward fast enough or whatever. Like I'll just do it. It's like that's really hard not to do sometimes. Although as I gotten older, I'm like, okay, I'm tired. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get that instinct myself as well. I think my mom had a lot of that, and now like, she's not around anymore, but I keep seeing myself like do like these certain behaviors. I'm like, oh yeah, like I guess I'm more like my mom than I ever knew. But yeah, she was definitely like that type of person. Um, but I for me like season three, just we just give like a little quick like kind of opening statement just to get our like broad
Yeah,
thoughts on the season out. But for me, it was the best of the three seasons. I thought it was really cool how they built so much stuff up in the first couple seasons that they were able to rely on their own history just as much as the history of the other shows. They could
yeah, that's
reference
in my
their
notes too.
yeah they could reference like their own episodes and not just all the legacy shows or whatever, so that was cool. And it really did like it moved the characters forward. It's funny that the animated show that just does 10 little 22-23 minute episodes every year, how
Yeah.
like in 3 years they actually have they've come a long way. Like go watch the first episode of Lower Decks and it's like,
They're
oh
different characters.
yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. Well, Tendi maybe not so much, but
I don't, well, even like
she is though. I
with
just yeah.
Tindy, yeah, like I mean, you
I'm
just
just
like
saying
getting
her
her out
outward
of
like yeah, exactly.
getting her out of sick bay and
Yeah.
like into on her way to being a science officer on the bridge, and now she's training someone else to be in
Maybe a
Starfleet.
better way to put it is she's not lost her like excitement, which is cool. Like that's lasted through
Oh
these
yeah,
3 seasons.
yeah, she hasn't become like jaded or cynical like
Right.
most of us do as we grow older, to be honest. Yeah, that would make me sad to see that happen to Tindy.
Yeah.
But I don't know what would like you just like your general thoughts about season three. Anything else jump out to you?
Yeah, you mentioned the thing that I was talking about, the just their own lore being able to I guess we could say that this is a new Star Trek thing where every season's going to have one episode that I just don't have any interest in. So it's like the peanut hamper one, I'm just like, oh, all right. Um but no, overall I just think it was very seamless. It felt like there was a nice flow between all of the episodes, even though they're episodic and you could take them out of order. But when they actually watch them in order, it's like,
Mm.
oh, there's a really nice, lead to Buenamigo doing his, like, oh, it's clearly that, when you start watch it over again, like he's the bad guy, and just like the foreshadowing and things like that. I mean, calling him the basically what the good friend, I think is
Yeah,
what that means. It's like that kind of is on the nose a little bit.
yeah. Buen Amigo. One of the few Star Trek characters to be. I guess it's like never said on screen that he's from Texas, but he clearly is. I mean, he's got like the Alamo and a Texas flag and like all of that stuff in his quarters. But
It's
yeah,
like
that
a Freeman with her California flag and
yeah,
in hers. Yeah.
that was kind of fun just to see the I don't know, like that's like the type of shit like like Texas pride is like a real thing. Like I know like people in like other states don't have that. Like I don't see like people don't like walk around with like a Idaho shaped belt buckle on their belt, or like that's not a thing. But yeah, it was just fun to see that.
You go online, you find it on eBay probably somewhere in Idaho shaped belt buckle.
I I was in preparation for this. I watched the season 3 Blu-ray, which by the way, is totally worth it just for the commentary tracks. The commentaries are hilarious. Like half the episodes have commentaries, and a lot of them are with like Mike McMahon, Jack Quaid, Tawny Newsome, Jerry O'Connell's on there. Oh, on the Deep Space Nine one, they get Armin Shimmerman and Nana visitors, and they're just as funny as like the Lower Decks people. Like they're really hilarious though, and those people they all seem to have like so much fun watching the shows. So uh,
Yeah.
I really recommend the Blu-ray. But one of the special features on there, Noelle Wells, like she's from Texas, she's from San Antonio, and she
Oh, that's
talks about
cool.
how like when she moved to LA, like she didn't want to tell anyone she's from Texas because she didn't want people to be like oh, do you ride a horse at home and like all of that stuff. So I don't know like who was like teasing her about that, but I wonder if like that's why like Mike McMahon came up with like the Texas class ships. He wanted it to be like a California versus Texas thing.
Yeah. I feel like that people moving from, all sorts of places, at least Los Angeles is not really California. It's just
Yeah,
every place that's like, I moved here
Austin's
in
like that.
94, so I'm kind of like now I'm from here. It's
Pe-
just you get absorbed into it.
People from all over the world move to Austin, and it's always like weird to me because I've never lived outside of a 60-mile radius of where I am right now, and it's like, oh well, yeah, that seems crazy to like, I don't know, come from all the way where you came from to set up shop here where it's 105 degrees every day.
I went from when I was a teenager, we moved to Minnesota. So I came from Washington State to Minnesota, and they asked us if like, do you surf? We're like, huh? Like they confused California and Washington and Oregon as like one place. It's just like, how many celebrities do you see? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm from like a small town in Washington State. It's like,
Yeah.
and they said that I had a Texas sounding accent. I'm like, okay, you people don't know anything about that. It's like, what?
Well, bless their heart.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
we would say in Texas. That's the Texas response to that.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's actually the Minnesota response in a way too. They have that kind of their own version of that.
Either that or I love that for you. If you
Yeah,
that one has like that's a lot of
that
venom
seems
in that.
newer.
If
I don't know
yeah,
if it's
yeah,
newer, but
maybe.
it's just like more than I haven't heard it until recently as much.
But yeah, Buen Amigo was an interesting contribution. I guess like some of like the highlights from the season for me, like my favorite episodes were like my favorite of all time of Lower Decks was Hear All Trust Nothing, the DS9 episode. But Aaron, I know like a big one for you is like Paradoxus episode. That
Yeah,
was also a big one for me. That's probably my second favorite, at least of this season, but possibly of like the show over. Well, I don't know. I think I still put like Wage Douche above Crisis Point too, but
yeah. I mean, the
I
first Crisis Point, there's not. It's hard to beat that just because it was so unique, and it also had a lot of like real emotional
mm,
measures in it. So I think it's kind of like, do you like TOS better than whatever? It's like, well, you couldn't have all these other ones without that. So I kind of like, you just don't want to necessarily say yes or no. It's just sort of like it's the base point. So, but yeah, Crisis Point 2, I really like though.
the episode Reflections really stood out to me. Like Rutherford, I never really cared about him quite as much as I did the other of the four main lower deckers. Who I hope like Talin becomes like the fifth, and we have like five main characters, which is what it kind of looks like going into season
Yeah.
four. So that was on my wish list last week when we talked about the things we were most hoping we'd see in season four. But yeah, Rutherford, like I don't know, he never had like as much substance. I always liked him, but like I don't know, he didn't have like a ton of depth. I wasn't very attached to him. But like after we get like a little bit of backstory on him, he's become like a lot more interesting to me.
It's almost like, everybody has that friend that's just always there with the friend group, and
Mm-hmm.
but you just don't know much about them. They're there and they're fun and whatever. And then you're kind of moved on. It's just sort
Yeah,
of, he kind of strike me as that kind of a person.
yeah, like you don't really like question it until you stop and think, kind of thing.
What is your story?
For some reason I really liked mining the mind's mines. It just but the thing that like really grabs me is just like that opening with the outpost. I love that like the outpost scientists have become like a recurring
Yes.
thing in lower decks. So
I
I
made fun of it. Was
whenever
in the first episode, wasn't it, like, or Envoys? It was, I think it was.
yeah envoys when Boimler's like
Yeah.
I should have just I'm not gonna cut it. What is it? I'm not like cut out for Starfleet. I'm gonna have to go become an outpost scientist. And then like I'll probably like die and someone will discover
Where
my
those
death and some like
horrible
terrible
over.
camera
Yeah,
footage.
exactly. Yeah. Shaky, something video. I can't remember, like log video or whatever. Yeah, that was funny.
But like that opening of mining the mind's mines, where you see like the outpost scientist and his seventh grade geology teacher appears before him and turns him to stone. I was just like, oh my god, that's such like an enticing episode. Like I'm so like drawn in. I need to see what happens here. And just like the joke of you get like the opening credits, and then like after the credits, it's like, oh, like, this entire big Star Trek story happened, and now it's like the California class ship showed up for cleanup duty. For some reason, I just thought that was like so hilarious and clever.
It's kind of interesting. There's layers of that where it's like the California class itself doesn't really get to do the big missions, but also our lower decks characters don't get to do even that level of it's like there's like this just
Yeah.
lower and lower. The A story, like in the first episode of the season, it was fun as that we got to see what the A story was with like reenactment or like courthouse drawings, which I thought was great. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. When they talk about like that entire like huge adventure of you had what's his name, Kelsey Grammer's character,
oh yeah,
Captain Bateman, right?
I think so.
But
Yeah.
he went and had to go like find out who actually blew up Pakled planet, and Tuvok helps him unearth
Yeah.
this conspiracy. It was like an inside job from the Paklids. They were trying to get the Federation to buy them a new planet, get them like a new
Bateson.
home world. What is it?
Bateson, I think. That's
Bateson, not
yeah.
Bateman. Okay, removed the S for some reason. Uh, but yeah, just like that episode, like a perfect example of like, yeah, like this is the show that like doesn't follow those big things, but it was good that they reminded us of like these are the unimportant people on the unimportant ship. So then when you get to the end and you see it was all the California class ships, not only like proving their value to like Starfleet, proving like don't dismantle our ships. We're actually like really good at our jobs. We're really good at second contact, but it reminds us like, oh no, they actually are important, and there are no unimportant people on unimportant ships. There's no unimportant ships. It takes
Yeah.
everyone, and which is kind of like the entire theme of Lower Decks as a whole. It's like sometimes you need the people on like the bottom of the totem pole too.
That was my frustration and like worry when they first announced this and like, oh, it's the least
Mm-hmm.
important ship. I'm like, there are none. It's like this is Starfleet. What are you talking about? So
Right.
I was just terrified that we were going to end up with something that's like, where it's more making fun of Star Trek as opposed to, you know, making fun with the people of Star Trek fans.
Yeah. We're not laughing at Star Trek. We're laughing with Star Trek.
Exactly. Well, sometimes we're laughing at Star Trek, but we're all laughing at it. It's not pushing back.
The other episode I really liked, which I know we're in disagreement on, but I really loved a mathematically perfect redemption. I thought I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. I got drawn into like, oh my god, this is nuts. We're doing like a whole peanut hamper episode. Like we're just following her on this weird bird planet. I believed her like coming around and having
That
like
was the
the
problem with I think probably for me. It's like I believed she was coming around, and then
yeah.
I know that's what the point was. Is like doesn't but and the fact that like the native people got to save themselves as opposed to you know Starfleet swooping in and
Right.
doing it
The
or
white
her even.
savior trope.
Yeah, exactly.
Your
So
dances
that was
with
very cool,
wolves.
and I think it's just peanut hamper, just the crassness sometimes. But it's like I didn't hate the episode. It was just like okay, this is not my favorite. It's my least favorite of the season, but I love the opening, how they did that differently than the regular
Oh yeah.
intro, which I thought was pretty cool. They
Yeah, it
made
was like
a comment about the Aurelians, which is kind of cool. They shouted out a TAS bird species.
she calls them a you're like a poor man's Aurelian.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great deep cut to the animated series.
People are like, what? Yeah, if you've never seen it, that would be very confusing.
Yeah. It also had like that really cool warp sequence when Peanut Hamper like basically like straps herself to like a homemade warp nacelle.
Yeah.
Uh, like the animation, it's something like we've talked about recently, I believe, like off mic, but to be like a good comedy, you kind of have to get like all the serious stuff has to be serious. That all has to like it has to look right. It has to like match the universe, or else like if you
That's
do
what Mike told us today. Actually,
right,
that's
right.
weird. Yeah.
And like if you get like those other like details wrong or whatever, it's like it just makes your whole thing look stupid, and not like
Yeah.
and like then the actual like goofy stuff that's supposed to be like the jokes, like it doesn't pop like it should.
Right.
So like when they do something like have like that cool like a warp flight or whatever, and like, oh yeah, we got to put like some like really cool special effect visuals and make it like if
Yeah.
this was like a serious Star Trek show, it would look cool like this, and like
Yeah.
that approach is really important.
That was kind of the way like this is a I always mention our improv show, but the first time I met the improvised generation, they were doing a show at Comic-Con, and they're on a space station, and the guy who's running the space station wants the chief engineer of the McGinley to look at their warp core. And I'm leaning over to Larry Nemechek, who I was with, and just like, okay, these people don't know anything. There's not a warp core on a space station. And also, she goes, better yet, why is there a warp core on a space station? I'm like, okay, I love these people because they just hung a lantern on it and she went and fixed it basically. And then
Nice, that's
the space
awesome.
station went flying around, which was hilarious.
Well, space stations fly in the other Star franchise, right? They keep
That's true.
calling the Death
Yeah.
Star a station, even though it can go from solar system to solar system. So to me, that should be a ship, but I don't know.
Didn't Starfleet headquarters also fly in Discovery?
That is true. Yeah, we did that in Star Trek now. Yeah. But it's technically a ship. It has a dedication plaque.
That's true. Yes, that
I don't know
shows
if
up
they.
in Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me. They forgot to take down, or they didn't. It was too hard to get it down. You
Well,
think they would have
if you
CGI'd it
didn't
out
know
in
what it,
post?
yeah, except for the, I mean, it's one of those things that like if you don't know what it is, it's just a wall, part of the
Yeah,
wall.
but
It's like,
also it's Star Trek. You got to know, like, as soon
well,
as it
that's
airs, you're gonna
yeah.
like Yerg is gonna find it if no one else will. So it's like
True.
the episode's not even gonna be out 24 hours before it's all over
Yeah,
Trek Twitter. But
I think we
um,
both said that at that point. So, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, those were like my big standout episodes. I know that's like half the season, but there's only 10 episodes, so
It's hard to pick. Yeah, I think I really loved Crisis Point. I actually really loved the first episode. There's just this, you've got a lot of shout outs to First Contact,
yeah.
and they basically turn the Bozeman area into a theme park, which is of course what we would do. It's like, and I love that they did this little homage to not only Jerry Goldsmith because of the music, and I think his son did First Contact. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was a collaboration between
Yeah,
Goldsmith and Jerry Goldsmith is credited, but his son worked on a lot of that with him.
the ride, the Fly the Phoenix thing, it is so similar to Soarin' Over California, like the cue and everything like that. So it was, and he did the music for Soarin' Over California. So
Ah,
that was a nice little kind of looped in, repetitive. They had when Cromwell is doing Cochrane. Sorry, it was sort of that Patrick Warburton sort of like voiceover ish the way he did when you're going through the queue at Soarin' Over California, or in Florida now, I guess, and now it's just Soarin' over the world. I don't know. Somebody said it's very CG looking, which that's kind of sad because
the,
they shot everything with film before. That was the point. It was like this amazing IMAX film.
yeah. I'd
But
rather look
anyway,
at like real footage than
yeah.
CGI. That would kind of defeat the purpose, I guess.
But I loved how it just tied up all last season. Some people I think probably thought it tied up too quickly, but I just liked the way it tied up and the fact that even the end when they stole the ship, it ended with like finding or helping a life form basically.
Oh yeah, that was one of my like the funniest jokes of the season for me was when they are having to help the what are they called? Those creatures.
I don't remember what they called them. Like something. Yeah, I'll look it up if you
The
want to keep talking.
Verugament. The
Oh yeah, there.
Verugament.
Thank you.
Yeah, like the Verugament orgy on the on the stripped down naked Cerritos to make it extra dirty. And there's all
Right.
kinds of weird stuff happening. But yeah, when they're like carrying the DNA from like one creature to like another, and they're like covered in slime, and they're being slapped with these tentacles that like electrocute you when
Yeah.
they hit you. Like it's like the most like terrible experience imaginable in a lot of ways. I don't know. It's just like that was one of the funniest things ever. That was so stood out to me as like a great comedic moment.
Yeah.
Did you have any like really funny scenes like that throughout the season? That
I really like. I mean, this isn't the most funny, but Crunch or Cranch, sorry, which is
yeah,
supposed to be ketchup and ranch. That's why they named him that.
I did not know that
um,
either.
just it's like he's going after Boimler and runs into Freeman in the hallway. And he's like, "Thank you for the mimosas," and then just like it was. I don't know. I was like, that just made me crack up because
Yeah,
his voice is just so,
yeah. He's so like
uh,
aggressive and intimidating,
yeah,
but he's
but
actually
also
like
super
he's a
sweet at the
nice.
same
Yeah,
time. Yeah, exactly.
he's very well mannered.
I just can imagine him like at a table, like trying to drink out of a little glass and stuff like that. Trying to think of what else. Obviously in Crisis Point, there's also one little moment in Crisis Point where you see a guy yells, "It's like we're all part of the simulation." It's like, oh, you actually are.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the one time you've heard that, and it's like, yes, that is
True.
100% correct. Absolutely.
And I think the one that I hadn't noticed until I did this rewatch is they mentioned Manuki. Now
Hmm.
Manuki is what Freeman was. Oh, that was the other thing when Freeman got turned into the Manuki and was flying around and
Yeah, it was
and
referencing the
Mariner's like,
TNG,
stop touching masks.
yeah, the
Like,
TNG episode Mask when
yes.
Data got possessed.
So this must be part of that same culture. But later in the holodeck, when it's like they're walking through that desert place. I don't know if it had a name, but you hear somebody in the background. It's like, Manuki will help you find the way. I'm like, oh, hey, I didn't even notice that they repeated it. So that was kind of cool. It's like a mini version of going back to their own lore.
Right, yeah. It was like they had an opportunity there for a Star Trek Easter egg, and they planted an Easter egg from their own history, which
Yeah.
they should do. I think that's cool. Uh, some of like the real funny stuff for me that like I stood when I was doing my rewatch, I was like, oh, yeah, I gotta write this down. This is another great moment. But like the acid trip in Room
Oh,
to
yeah.
Growth, like I just love that. When Tindy's like, oh no, like I gotta get you out of here, and then like Mariner just like mocking her, like I gotta get you out, and like whatever she's saying, just the way like she appeared like this like little like annoying little like butterfly pixie thing. Like I don't know, I just thought it was like
My arms do not normally move this way. No.
yeah, it was all
Along that line.
really funny. It was good. The dead Doopler down in there. I don't know how many people noticed
Oh, yeah.
that, but
It was
when I saw like a dead skeleton, I was like, oh no, like people don't get like just dead bodies shouldn't just like turn up on Starfleet ships. What are they doing putting a skeleton in there? And then I was like, oh, it's one of the Dooplers. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that is like the one way like a corpse would get overlooked on a Starfleet ship. Because the ship was packed with the Dooplers, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to grieve over that. Like there's like 1,000 of those like annoying little creatures.
But is it really multiple creatures, or is it just one of the like? Do they ever like recombine, or
Yeah, they
is that their way
recombine
of?
when he gets when he gets angry, when they start being rude to him.
So maybe it's the equivalent of like having like losing a toenail or something like that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, just like that one just didn't make it back in, but okay,
Yeah.
it probably didn't suffer long down in there. But yeah, that was funny. Boimler's meltdown on Starfleet Recruitment Day when like the
Yes.
like the whole episode, you think like Mariner's the one who's about to snap, who's about to lose it, and just like that's probably like the most profanity in an episode. Like even when Dr. Ta'ana has gone on some profane bleeped out rants. The bleeps are so funny. The bleeps
Yeah.
make it so much funnier. They were just like dropping F bombs left and right. No one would laugh, but when you bleep it, it makes it like 10 times funnier.
Especially when he's yelling about the doctor. It's like, he didn't go all the way to the Delta Quadrant for you. Like, what is it? Question his agency. He has
Yeah.
rights.
Yeah. I think to question his personhood, I think is what he said.
Okay.
Yeah. I could be wrong, but yeah, that was yeah. There's some real standout comedic moments.
It's hard to like name them because like when you think of one, like, oh, they know the other one, and then this one and that one, like the whole salon scene in what is it?
Oh my god, yeah.
How do you call
Here,
that?
here I'll trust nothing.
Here, yeah,
It's
thank you.
the
Here I'll trust
DS9 one.
nothing. Where they they're in this stupid like salon, which is just like a pajama party essentially, and Mariner is trying to behave basically, and it's sort of like Jennifer, I think, wants her to be that badass, but it's almost like it's like an image of her that isn't real. Like she's taking all the press that everybody's ever thought about Mariner as gospel, and like wanting her to be that person all the time. It seems like, but just when they're in the room and the power goes out because of what's happening on Deep Space Nine, and the candles that were in the room like start taking out all the oxygen. It's like, calm down. It's like it just turned off, which I love because I've seen in science fiction shows they always do that. Like the power goes down and the life support goes off, and then everybody can't breathe. I'm like, that's not how life support works. The air didn't get sucked out. But she's like, oh, whoa, these candles are taking up a lot of oxygen, and so she ends up just phasering all the people. It's like, you know what happens when people are unconscious? They use a lot less oxygen. What does that have to do with any? So it just stuns everybody. I don't know. It's like, I'm just living my best life or whatever she said when she's running around.
I love that because I frequently get frustrated in Star Trek when people don't stun. It's like, you're pointing a phaser at the bad guy and like you're trying to like talk to him and like ask him questions or something. It's
Yeah.
like you can just like stun that guy and beam him up to the brig and question him later.
Exactly.
Like or like anytime someone is causing like any kind of problem, it's like you have like a little machine that you can pull out of your pocket and make that person take a nap. Consequence free. Worst case scenario, like they bump their head when they go unconscious, get like a head injury. Okay, like your doctor can wave a light over that and fix it. As to quote Lower Decks, Doc will wave a light over it. So yeah, stun away. Like speaking of Lorelei signal, speaking of Uhura in the animated series. I love in the Lorelei
Oh
signal
yeah.
when, yeah, she beams down and she asks them, "Hey, where are you keeping our men?" And when they're like, "We're not going to tell you," and she's just like, "Fine, I'm just going to stun you all and look for them myself," and she does, and it works.
I never thought of that. She is the only person who's done that, hasn't isn't she?
Yeah,
That's
stun
pretty
first,
awesome.
ask questions later. I
And I could
say,
totally see the Strange New Worlds version of Uhura doing that too.
yeah, yeah. I want to show that episode to oh my goodness, like Celia Rose Gooding. I couldn't think of her
Oh
name for
yeah.
a second. I want to show that episode to her, and I want to show Mud's passions to Ethan
Yeah.
Peck and Just Bush.
Yeah. That would be hilarious. I also, speaking of Strange New Worlds, I know it's not part of season 3, but you and I talked about those old scientists and where it fit
Yeah.
in the timeline and stuff. So if you want to talk about that, that was kind of interesting the way you figured that out.
Yeah, so the star date on that would indicate that it takes place between episodes 5 and 6 of season 3. So that would put it right after Reflections and right before Hear All Trust Nothing. The cool thing about that is that that planet they discover that portal on, it must be close to DS9. It must be like on their way to DS9, because when they're trying to decode those that written language on it, they're comparing it to Cardassian language and Bajoran language. So it seems to be in like the same neighborhood as the station. So it just, yeah, it makes sense. Like the Cerritos is in that part of the galaxy on that
Yeah.
star date. So there's a little like that, like the little technical details like that Lower Decks goes extra hard to get right. We always talk about like, oh yeah, like all the designs, everything like matches the quote unquote, like the canon, the visual canon. They do a good job with all
Yeah.
of that. I guess like there is like a goof in season 3. They get like one thing that I would have expected them to get right, they get wrong, and that is they're calling a racquetball. It's the sport that Julian and Miles were playing against each other.
Hmm.
But they keep calling it spring ball, which was that was a Bajoran sport.
Yeah.
It looks different.
I
We
remember
we
that.
see we see Garrick and Zial. They go to a spring ball game, and it looked quite different. So and Mike McMahon admitted like on social media is like, oh yeah, that should have been called racquetball, not spring ball. We just goofed up. So but we can just headcanon that they're interchangeable. You can call spring ball it's kind of like
Well, yeah,
football
maybe
and soccer type of thing.
exactly. That's what I was thinking immediately. It's like I almost wondered if that's what they were doing originally on
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine. But one last funny thing: the D&D game that they had, that was just perfect with Martok just screaming about everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Back
Batleths
then.
and Binocs. Yeah, that was good.
Yes, I'm wearing, for the audio audience, I'm wearing my B&B shirt.
Which is another great thing about Lower Decks is they have the T-shirt club, and
Yes.
they're gonna have that again for season 4. So that's gonna be 11 new shirts. Because if you sign up and get the shirt every week, then you get a bonus season 4 shirt.
Yes. Which is always the bonus that you want, not necessarily all the other ones.
Yeah, I'm
Which I
so
know is done on
jealous.
purpose, obviously, but
I am so ungodly jealous of everyone who got like the season 2 shirt of the Klingon acid punk.
I have
Because like
that.
that's all literally like ask anyone who like knows me in real life in the physical world, who like sees me on a regular basis. Like that's pretty much all I wear are Star Trek t-shirts and heavy metal band t-shirts. It's like that was like the shirt made for me.
I need to get you a transparent Illumika t-shirt. That one, the it's a blend between Metallica,
Right, yeah.
about like,
You
yeah,
told me about
because
that, yeah.
yeah, actually Darren just tweeted it today, so you can see it on my feed. I retweeted it, but yeah,
That would be the like Star Trek thrash metal band should be called a transparent Illumika. So, props for the name, sir. I like that.
so yeah, that's for me. That's kind of like my favorite moments, or the funniest moments.
And what about like another thing I think Lower Decks does really well is they have like good action scenes. Like in animation, it's still, I know it's a lot of work to storyboard that type of stuff and plan it out and then animate
Yeah.
it. but you can really do like a lot of action sequences that would be like an insane budget to do in live action, or a lot of stuff that would probably be reserved for the movies, or maybe like one or
That's like
two
what
times a
Crisis Point
season.
does really well too. They're just like, these are all these big giant set pieces that would never happen, even on the
Yeah.
regular show.
But even something like the one that like really stands out to me is the Breen attack when they're on
Mm.
the drug dealer planet from
Yeah.
Symbiosis. It's kind of sad now. Like I watched Symbiosis, like I caught it on the other day, and I was like,
Yeah.
these people are kind of assholes, but the Breen are gonna like murder all of them in 17 years or whatever. That's kind of sad. But I mean, the same thing whenever I watch something set on Romulus, I suppose.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true.
but that Breen attack, like the Breen ships were cool when they're like on the outside of the Cerritos, and they come over on those tubes and they're trying to like like burn their way through the windows,
Oh
and
yeah, that's scary actually. Yeah.
Shax is panicked. He's like
Yeah.
they don't take prisoners, don't negotiate. Like you're just gonna have to kill. It was like like, oh, like the big guy who's always like eager to fight. He's worried. That makes me worried.
Yeah.
It was. Uh, that was cool. And then like the ending, all the when all the
All the
California class
California.
ships.
Yeah. That was amazing.
And that's so much like hammers in like the theme. Like, yeah, like these are all the ships that you thought would be like unimportant, but
Yeah.
look at how like they rally together. They can accomplish so much. That whole message of that, like the strength that comes out of solidarity. Like you were saying, the theme of the season. When you are able to depend on other people and lean on other people. I think that's really uh that is really shown through Mariner. By the way, like that, one of the big highlights for me was all the emotional beats we get with Mariner, and how we never really see vulnerable Mariner in seasons 1 and 2. But we get it, early on in season 3. We see her like break down and start crying when she's like, I gotta, I don't want to be like a stupid lower decker. I want to like figure this out so we can save my mom. It's important, like we got to get our
Yeah.
shit together and save the
You talked
captain.
about how helpless she felt. Yeah.
Or when she's like worried about like impressing her girlfriend's friends, when Jennifer brings her to the Castro salon and she's like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable here, but I'm actually going to try to do this right because I care about Jennifer. And we never saw like that side of Mariner in seasons 1 or 2. She was always like on top of shit.
I think the only time that we started to see that break a little bit was like in Crisis Point when she
Yeah.
like saw her alternate or holodeck version of herself. Like, oh, she actually does like being here, and she will fight to protect her mom and all that stuff. And it's like like the therapy at the end.
She's a complicated character. She's
Yeah.
very complex for an animated comedy, but she's got like this internal conflict of which is somewhat resolved in season 3, but where she wants to be in Starfleet. She wants to be like on Star, she's good at it. She's good at going to other planets and solving problems and all of that stuff. But she has a hard time, working in that system, in that hierarchy. And because of that, like she's always reluctant to like apply herself, or like really like push
Yeah.
herself. And that's why she's always like avoided promotions and everything. But then like when she finally like leaves Starfleet and runs off with Petra, she has to accept like, oh no, a big part of me wants to go back there, and that's where I actually belong. So she kind of comes to terms with. It's kind of a question that I had going all the way back to season 1, was like, well, why does she stay in Starfleet if she has so many problems with it? But the idea was that like she likes the work, she just
Yeah.
she didn't have like the people skills to like get along with her coworkers and be part of like that crew, be part of that.
I feel like growing up and just like going from my 20s into my 40s, watching people at work, I see people like that too, where it's just like they hate everything about being there, but they really don't. They just like they're frustrated about something maybe not being as good as it could be, or you know, there's just one person they can't get along with or whatever. But it's like they don't want to quit, they don't want to leave their job, but they also like they can't figure out how to fit in, basically.
Yeah. um and that's, I guess like a big part of the season, that theme of like all the people coming together, working together, learning to rely and trust on each other. There's also like kind of a balance of like accepting everyone's individuality, but being able to like be yourself but still be part of the crew, part of the team, part of the family.
Yeah.
And how it's really like a collection of all of us, and that's, I guess, Star Trek's whole mission statement with infinite diversity and infinite combinations. It's basically a depiction of that.
100%. Yeah. I also liked that, going back real quick to Petra when she's in her booth at the Starfleet or at the career day, the way they kept talking the indie archaeology, whatever, like because sounds like I feel like they were like trying to like it's almost like Indiana Jones or something like
Yeah,
that. It was very like the abbreviation was like, oh, okay, I can see what you're doing.
yeah, they're the independent archaeologist guild, or but yeah, they're the
Yeah.
indie archaeologist basically,
Hmm.
who
And they had that
are
whole thing with
funded by
the
John Luke, I guess.
yeah, exactly.
So how
The
independent are they?
That's true. Um, it's the also the little idol, the Ferengi idol, which is kind of like the idol in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's funny because like they showed that in, I think, the first trailer for season 3. They show like Mariner swinging around on a whip or vine, and
Yeah,
grabbing that idol, and it like then we never see it the whole season. So like going into the season 3 finale, I was like, I guess we're gonna get Mariner swinging around on a vine in this episode, because she did run off with Petra in episode in Trusted Sources.
right.
Like because Freeman tried to apologize and then was like, "Oh yeah, she left Starbase 80, but we're dealing with this bat flying around because we're a bunch of dumbasses still using a Rolodex in the 24th century." Starbase 80 is that's another, I guess, contribution from Lower Decks. But any show can go to Starbase 80 now. That's part of the canon, part of the lore. Don't know who would want to, but if they ever want to, it's there.
Could do something about like building it in the era of Strange New Worlds or something. It's been around that long, and just keep adding on to it or something.
Yeah, Starbase 80 is funny. I guess it runs the risk of being like a little too goofy, like when they like
Yeah, that was my
they,
concern. It's like, hopefully there isn't really a Starbase 80 or something. It's not that bad.
they hand her a uniform and it has a sandwich rolled up in it, and it's like, hey, I was looking
Yeah,
for that.
that was too. Yeah, that part honestly became a little too cartoony. It's just like, okay, that's a Simpsons joke almost.
Yeah, I can kind of believe in real life someone would misplace a sandwich in a rolled up uniform, but that would be I don't know, that would be like a rare occurrence, I think, even if you're dealing with like some really dumb dumbasses like the Starbase
Yeah.
80 people. uh Joel in our live audience is saying Picard season 4 should take place on Starbase 80. So maybe that was Terry Metalis' idea for Legacy. Who
Star Trek
knows?
Legacy, yeah, Starbase 80.
They're gonna greenlight that instead of Legacy. That's gonna be coming soon to Paramount Plus with Showtime. Were there any other jokes, Aaron, that didn't work for you? They just like they were just too goofy, too silly, too much for the Star Trek universe.
Um,
I
trying
got
to
one.
think. Why don't you go and I'll look through my notes.
Mine was from the same episode from the finale, the Stars at Night.
Hmm.
But when Shax makes his big victorious run through the ship down to engineering to eject the warp core, like his big day finally come. And I almost
Yeah,
kind of hate to complain about it because I'm happy for the character. It's like that's the whole joke. It's like that's the best day of his life. He finally gets to eject the warp core and blow some shit
yeah.
up. But it's just, come on, y'all are in like a middle of a combat situation. You're telling me like people are gonna like line up in the corridor to cheer on this dude. Like I know everyone's in on the joke that he really wants to eject the warp core, but I mean I just did not believe that. I was like that's not something that would seriously happen in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, for me, it's just like the peanut hamper in general is just it's hard to believe that she's a character in some ways. Like, just it started out being kind of odd, and then she just I just joined Starfleet to piss off my dad. I'm like, okay, come on. And then that carried over into a mathematically perfect redemption or whatever that was called.
Yeah, but
But
I
it'll
don't.
be interesting to see her and Agamus together in season 4.
Well, we know that they're both coming back because Mike has said on record that Peanut Hamper will be back. I don't remember if she's in the trailer or not, but I know Agamus is. He's on the poster.
Yeah.
The last time we saw them was together. It was implying that they were going to do what in the comic book world we call a super villain team up. So
Well, I wonder if like that ship that we see in the trailer that they're like all the Starfleet ships are getting blown up, or not Starfleet, but other than Starfleet.
yeah.
I'm wondering if that's somehow related to them. or you're thinking it is, and then it'll turn out not to be, or something like that. Like a
Yeah.
setup.
Badgie is also up to some. We get like the season 3, post credit scene of
Well, maybe all
Badgie
three
being
of them will
beamed
be
up.
together.
So yeah, it might start off with like Badgie, and then like he like recruits them, or I don't know, maybe they seek him out or something. But it would.
I still want to see what we talked about on our last episode of the good Badgie.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they build another one, and it's the reverse of lore. It's like you just meant lore first.
yeah. Our friend Brandy was saying that's something that she wanted to see, and like, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool if like, because we know there's like this would be the third attempt that we know of Rutherford trying to develop this AI software. It'd be cool if like eventually like he got one that wasn't evil. The Texas class ships turned evil, Badgie turned evil.
Well, to be fair, he didn't do the Texas class. He just, he's like,
Right.
it was just
It
his
was
base
based on
code.
his code that he, I guess,
Yeah.
forgot that he designed when he lost his memory, but then he ended up writing the same, which it makes sense. You would repeat if you erased your memory, you
Yeah.
would repeat your work. So if he
I've
hadn't if he hadn't have had that memory erased, he probably would have been like, oh, I see this is like screwed up evil software. Now I can correct that, and we wouldn't have had it. Badgie wouldn't have never been born. He never would have
right.
existed. So we can blame that on Boy and Amigo. Good friend, my ass.
I went back and listened to an old podcast once, and I started like making the same jokes along with it. I didn't remember it. It was like, okay, it is that sort of thing. It's like you're just programmed to like even laugh the same way or something like that. It happens. Yeah. So it would be, if you lost your memory, it would be easy to make all the same mistakes again.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've never had my memory erased, and I've repeated many of my own mistakes. So, Starfleet Sohel is in our live audience, and he's saying, "Hi everyone. Starfleet Sohel is at Starfleet Medical attending to his Aunt Christine, not chapel. But I wanted to pop in and say hi and remind everyone to like and share and subscribe. Thank you so much, Sohel. Hope your aunt is feeling better, and people should like, share, and subscribe to Starfleet Sohel as well."
Exactly. So where are we in our general wrap? It seems like we've gone through the bulk of the show at least. Is there anything? Um, let's see. Sorry. Go ahead. I was trying to go through your outline. Never mind. I won't do that.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, disappointing episodes,
Yeah.
moments we didn't like, best comedic moments, best action scenes. Were there any other like emotional moments that I was talking about, like the vulnerable mariner stuff? I really
Yeah.
liked that. The the peanut hamper's betrayal, which worked on me, but I guess the reason why I part of why I like that episode so much is I felt like that pain, like that betrayal myself, and it just, if they're setting her up to be like a bigger villain in season 4, like
Yeah.
I'm ready to like, yeah, like I'm against Peanut Hamper, like I'm on the side of whoever is trying to stop Peanut Hamper. I'm rooting for you,
Right.
110%.
I think that one of the emotional beats that, or one of the scenes that hit me really well was in Crisis Point, where Tendi is just like pissed off at Rutherford because he's not taking it seriously. And she's like, I want to be a captain. It was sort of like, oh, I've never said that out loud before. It just, where she's taking everything very seriously. And it's just that sort of like, why don't you take this seriously too? It's like, you're supposed to be my friend. But it was not in his, like, we're having a fun, it'd be like playing a game with somebody and then them taking it super seriously. And you're like,
Hmm.
why are you taking this so seriously? Because I want to be a financer when I grow up. I don't know, Monopoly.
But yeah, it's exactly like that. And it's also like that episode, Crisis Point 2, was so like such meta commentary on the Star Trek movies and on fandom to a certain extent, where you have Mariner and Boimler like arguing over like, oh well, this sequel doesn't really belong in continuity with the rest of this universe that was established, and then Boimler just being like, oh, what are you talking about? Like I fixed so many of the things you were doing wrong in the original version and stuff like that. But
And they
with
called it Starfleet movie. It's sort of like, it's
yeah,
just Star Trek. It's just take the fleet out and replace the word.
But yeah, they're fans of Star Trek movies, clearly, just
Yeah.
Starfleet movies. But Rutherford is like the more casual movie. Like, yeah, he left to go get a snack in the middle of like
Yeah.
the boring special effects sequence. You know, it's like entering V'ger, and like he goes to the concession stand to get
Yeah.
more popcorn or something. And then, yeah, like he's like laughing at like the serious dramatic death.
Amazing
And he's like,
graphics.
you ever watch like a movie with someone and like a real big like emotional
Oh
thing
yeah.
happens and you're like, oh my god, you're like in tears, and the person next to you is just like they're laughing at
Cracking
it,
up.
yeah. But
People
it was
also
totally like that.
Yeah, and people also take emotions differently sometimes. Like I see people laugh at a funeral and that kind of thing because you're just
Yeah.
it's how you cope. But yeah, I thought that was cool. I just like the whole just being able to make fun of like the movies and with the detail of like when they're in the Regula station basically, and
Oh
they
yeah.
zoom in on the screen where Rutherford's like going amazing graphics. uh and it's just like in Star Trek 2 where when you zoom in, the zoomed in part looks completely different than the zoomed out part. Like
Yes.
the console is completely different in both shots,
That the
and they
left
did
and
they
right,
replicated that.
yeah, it was like it's identical. Like they in the commentary, Mike says, yeah, they just like copied and pasted that out of the Wrath of Khan.
Oh really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they actually had to like go through the process like getting that cleared to like clip footage out of the Wrath of Khan and use on lower
Oh,
decks.
interesting. Okay. Yeah, and then just just when he doesn't want to, make out with the love interest, and she's like, "I don't know what to do now." And he's like, and Mariner's like, "I don't know either. No, bye, lady."
That episode is a great example of when a story like plays different upon revisit, and it did like the first, because the first time you watch it, like you don't know, like, oh, he just got like the bad news that his transporter clone died.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like he's not in the mood to like make out with the cute hologram right now. It's like he's dealing with some
Why'd you
heavy
make her
shit.
so hot if you're not going to make out with her?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that episode was not the original plan Boimler had.
No.
But speaking
when
of,
it turns out to be Kitty Hawk. That
oh
is
my
probably one of
god,
the where I just I'm like it's V'ger but with Kitty, like it doesn't make any sense, and that's the point.
I was
It's
talking
like you
to
just
a friend about the motion picture a while. It was actually he's been on the show, but not in a long time. But Dave's brother,
oh wow
Matt. Yeah, he years and years ago he talked about some of the Star Trek movies with us. But I just he's quite a bit older than I am and was around when the motion picture came out and was like reading about it in magazines and stuff and Starlog or whatever. And I guess like the movie had leaked
Must
and
be
he
my
didn't
age
believe
then.
it. Yeah, he like read like some article somewhere in some zine where like someone had was basically like leaked the plot of the motion picture and they didn't really like, and he's like, I don't believe they would just like they would redo the Changeling, they'd redo the Nomad story, and then like the big reveal at the end that was like a Voyager space probe. I refuse to believe that. And like he went to see the movie and it's like, oh, it was exactly as it was described in that article. But he was also disappointed in like that reveal of the V'ger. So I think
Those
of Dave's brother Matt when I watch Paradoxus. When I watch Crisis Point 2 Paradoxus.
even TAS had like replicate. In fact, I just tweeted something about this where they're flying for the one of our planets is missing. They're inside this sort of amoeba, the space thing, and it's like nothing like this has ever been seen before. Flashback to a year earlier when they have like the immunity syndrome. It's like it's pretty similar.
Yeah, well, when the writers don't remember, the characters don't either.
Yeah.
But speaking of like the big emotional moments, I guess like another one for me, and maybe I've become like a big like Tendi Rutherford shipper. I'm not the type of fan who normally gets like super invested in the will they won't they and like the romantic relationships, but I do on occasion.
Yeah.
I definitely like get that way sometimes, and I've one of the things on my wish list for season 4 is I do really want Tendi and Rutherford to like get in a relationship. They both clearly have feelings for each other, but one of the times that stood out in season 3 is the episode Reflections, because we have the evil Rutherford. He's threatening Tendi, which really pisses off good Rutherford. And then you see Tendi's concern, when the two Rutherfords are fighting over control and they're waiting to see who comes out of the coma. And then
Right.
when good Rutherford wakes up, just like when Tendi just like bursts into tears and like hugs him or whatever, like you really feel like her relief in like that moment. It's like the animation and Noel Wells like really sold that. It's like, y'all agree with me, right? Like, there's like true love there, right? I'm not just imagining this. Like, they need to be in a relationship. Like, why
Well,
aren't
even if
they?
it's not a romantic relationship, I mean, you can still have like that sort of love
Mm,
for a
true.
friend too. So
Yeah,
it's like,
totally.
part of me is happy that they didn't immediately glue them together. Like everybody didn't pair off. I'm like very happy Boimler and Mariner were not like a couple. I
Yeah.
was a little worried about that early on, but it's
I
like,
don't
oh,
think
okay,
that'll
they're
ever happen. They're
no,
they're
no, no.
they're brother and sister.
Yeah,
They're yeah, that's
but that's what I appreciate about Lower Decks, because it doesn't or it will take the trope and you're like, oh no, they're going to do that. They're going to do that. And then it veers completely the other direction.
that's one of my criticisms of the show going into season 3 was that I felt like they had become too reliant on these gags of where like they set up something and then like misdirect you. And I got to the point to where
Oh
like
yeah.
I'm always seeing those coming when like you have like a character who's like they're gonna act like they're about to be mad, like the security officers who like bust them on the
Yeah.
Cerritos in the first
Yes.
episode, and they're like, "You think we would be mad about you doing like this important project to help these life forms? We would never be mad about that." And like I was like, man, I always seen these jokes coming, but at some point in season 3 they got better at it and they started like they started like tricking me a lot more. So it's like, okay, if you can like catch me off guard, then keep doing
Yeah.
them, but if
It's
not, then
different.
yeah.
I think they mixed it up. There was too many of those like where it's like, I'm really like, of course not. Go ahead. Where they're like, it's that chain. Like, okay, it became old very quickly.
Yeah. It was a joke that they started using a lot, going all the way back to I think episode 2 of season 1, when it began when Rutherford is like, "Hey
Yep.
Billups, I think I'm gonna leave engineering," and Billups is like, "You're gonna leave engineering?" and he's all mad, and then he just smiles and he's like, "I think that's great. You should go chase your dreams, buddy. Do what you want. Follow your
Yeah.
heart." And it's just which
The
is
funny thing is,
funny,
like,
but
it also feels like that's what you think inside your head when you see sometimes your brain, like, that's how that person's going to react, and then they don't.
mhm.
But in real life, people don't do that. Nobody has that sort of weird emotional response
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's more of like a
unless they're trying to
shorthand
make a
of.
joke of it. Then maybe they do. But
But they do that so much in seasons 1 and 2, and then
yeah,
but they start at a certain point in 3. And I remember I pointed it out when we were covering these last year. But they started like tricking me, and I would fall for it, and I would laugh at the joke. And so if you can do it good, keep doing it in season 4.
season 3 really seemed to refine kind of the flow of the episodes, just the how it. I don't know. It's just something about it feels just like they get just as much information in, but it also doesn't seem quite as frenetic. It is
Yes.
still that way, but there's something that's a little bit more. I guess they've fallen into they know their characters more, and they have to rely less on the physicality of talking really fast or something like that. I mean, they still do, and that was actually made fun of in Strange New Worlds even. But I think that just shows that they, season 3, like it seems like every Star Trek show in season 3 like seems to be like when they kind of click.
Yeah. Season 3s have a good track record, unless you're the original series,
Yeah,
where
exactly.
like it kind of started to fall apart.
Or TAS, which didn't have a season 3.
But in general, most people think like for me, I think season 4 is like the actual like magic number. I think like, that's when you get Worf on DS9. That's when you get 7 on Voyager. That's like
That's true.
I think I
But just, and basically
season 4 of
not right
Enterprise.
away, I guess, is what I'm getting
Yeah,
at. It's like,
yeah. Most Star Trek shows they grow and they take like a little bit to hit their stride. But I feel
yeah.
like Lower Decks had an incredibly strong season 1. So by the time I got to it season 3, it's definitely it's flying on all thrusters. Or
Yes.
firing on all cylinders. But
Or warp cores or some analogy. Just plug it in there.
I guess
Yeah.
to wrap up, to close out, just after revisiting season 3, is there anything different or something new that you hadn't thought about, or something that you're hoping for in season 4, or just where are you now positioned
Hmm.
after revisiting season 3 going into season 4?
I feel less like I did before, where I said I didn't want I didn't want to let Freeman off the hook quite as easily as she did at the end of the final episode, basically forgiving her for like not um
Believing
believing her. But yeah, and I think watching it again, it's like, oh, it's her self-reflection of going like, yeah, I could totally see why you would do that because that's how I act. There was some part where it pushed over enough that,
her. Mm,
like I bought it, that like, okay, she could change that quickly, because that happens to people sometimes too when they finally, that moment dawns on them, like, oh, this is how I act. But I do hope Jennifer does not, or she does not get back with Jennifer. That part seems to not be working.
yeah, it bothered me the first time I saw season 3 when Mariner just when they don't like do anything with Jennifer, when they, because we have like that conversation where Jennifer's like yelling at Mariner like, no, like you're terrible, you went and said all of this bad stuff, I don't
Yeah.
believe you now, get off the ship, go away. And then we never have any follow up to that other than like Mariner just kind of like gives like that look to Jennifer, and that bothered me. But then I had a conversation with you, I think on the show last year, and something that you pointed out to me that like I didn't pick up on was like, oh no, that's Mariner being dismissive of Jennifer. She's like, I'm not even gonna stop and have a conversation with you. Like I'm done with you. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I kind of love that she just like walked right past her and went straight to her friends who do apologize to her, and
Right.
that
Yeah, I
that
think
was good.
Boimler wasn't he saying, like, do I need to keep apologizing or whatever it was? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
the
So
Jennifer stuff might come up in season 4
yeah,
in
I'm
some
assuming that
form.
that's somehow going to, it's got to have to be addressed at least, even if it's done off screen where it's like, hey, isn't Jennifer coming with us? It's like, no, that's not happening, or something like, whatever.
Okay. That allows me to segue straight into like a new thing that I'm hoping for in season 4 after
Okay.
rewatching season 3. So I want to see more Mariner and Ransom on screen together. I really like that dynamic. In fact, like season 1 made me hope for like a romance between like the two of them, because I just
They almost seemed like they were in a little,
they're
like,
they're
just a
into each
brief
other.
moment. Yeah.
They're attracted to each other, but they also like they don't like, she's like the shitty employee, he's like the shitty boss. Like they don't like working together, but they're like, okay, but I think that person's hot. Like I'm
Yeah.
attracted to them, but like I don't like working with them. I would love to see
And
them like
especially he
return to
works with
that.
her mom. It's sort of like there's a weirdness there too, I
Yeah,
think.
but that's good. That's good drama. That's good sparks.
Yeah.
And they have they've
So ethical.
yeah, they've played around with it a little bit. In season 3, they start off with Mariner's kind of we joked around, Sohel and Rachel and I, when we covered that season 3 premiere last year. We joked around, said it was like a uh when you're like in trouble at work and you're on like a performance improvement plan or whatever it's called. But
Oh
that's
yeah.
basically like where she's having to like report in and check in with Ransom, and there's that creepy scene where he's like, "As far as you're concerned, Ensign, I'm your mama now." But then at the end of season 3, they turn that on its head, where when Mariner's welcomed back onto the ship and everyone's like apologizing to her, and then she's like, "Oh, Ransom, you didn't get rid of me yet. Like you're still stuck with me, and you're gonna deal with me having to report to you and all this stuff." And it's like, oh,
He's
like the
like,
season
no.
opened with, yeah, she's stuck with him, and then it ends with him being stuck with her. And so I'm looking forward to more of that in
Yeah.
in season 4 as well.
One thing with Ransom, I would like to see some sort of character growth beyond the fact that he works out. Like that's starting to wear a little thin. Like I get it as a joke, but it's like, okay,
Mm.
how many seasons can that go on?
Yeah, he's got a lot of workout jokes in season 3. The glutes are cute, but
Yeah.
obliques are for freaks, and he's always doing like push-ups or
But the
pull-ups or,
space elevator, or no, sorry, not space elevator, the
yeah,
whatever,
orbital
the
lift, damn it.
orbital
Gotta get
lift
right.
episode,
Orbital lift.
where it's like, how dare you not, you're coming to our temple without your navel being exposed or whatever. They're the healthy planet or whatever.
Oh, yeah, he had to show off his lava tubes.
Yeah.
I love that, like when he rips off his uniform, he's all shiny, like how like Shatner
Yeah.
always get oiled up.
Yeah. Like somehow, well, at least on that planet, that makes sense because he was all sweaty. At least, I mean, from the all the
Yeah,
stuff that they were doing,
he was
that kind
literally
of makes,
standing next to a volcano, so
yeah,
probably
that one works,
steamy. Yeah.
but
um,
mostly not. Yeah.
and of course, I'm dying to see more T'Lyn. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I know I said that a ton last week, but like, give me all the T'Lyn in season 4. I want her to be the fifth lower decker. I think that's a great way to add some freshness to the like I was just talking about, like season 4, like that's when you add Worf, that's when you add Seven with Lower Decks.
Right.
Season 4, that's when we add T'Lyn, and that's going to be a great way to shake things up and keep the show fresh. I believe.
So in like 20 years, we'll have some sort of show with some other character, and then T'Lyn shows up as the kind of like the Seven of Nine from
Yeah,
Voyager. But so yeah,
yeah,
but she comes out
T'Lyn.
as an actual live action person.
Yeah, she'll be eventually she'll become like a captain of some Enterprise. I don't know, Enterprise P or X or
They're running
something.
out of the numbers in between those, like unless that's just an alternate future that isn't real anymore, like
Yeah, it
from the
arguably
Cold War.
is.
Yeah, the
But that
temporal
was
Cold War.
yeah, I don't know. What
Because they're
should
up
they do
to
with the Enterprise
G,
J?
right?
Yeah, so there's only H and I.
Yeah, so that doesn't seem likely that's they're going to go through those. I just before you get to the 29th century, unless you
And
do
then we've
like
never seen anything.
a
They've
dot
never
one or something or whatever.
they never have done a ship post the J. Like Discovery season 3 and 4. They've never
Right.
had like an Enterprise.
Maybe that'll happen in the end of like the finale of
You might as well.
this.
It's your
Yeah.
your series finale. You might as well put like I don't know, Enterprise Z or something.
That or Enterprise AA or something. Just like, we've moved on past that. And you have to add something to it. What would go after the dash? Those old scientists was still that was the unofficial part of season 3. I really love that one too.
Oh, I did think of like one other thing I got to say about season 4
Yes.
before we sign off. And that is just, I got to point out how season 3 brought back so many legacy voice actors. We had James Cromwell, J.G. Hertzler, the Leia Brahms lady. I'm sorry, I can't think of the actor's name. No, Visitors, Armin Shimmerman, George Takei. Like they put a lot in there.
Susan Gibney, is that her name?
Susan Gibney, yes, thank you.
Hey, I actually remembered. That's cool.
So
I'm the one who remembered.
I'm looking forward to whoever is going to cameo in season 4. From the trailer, it looks like we're getting Max Gridinchik and Chase Masterson because we see Rom and Lita in the. I assume they'll speak.
We need Harry Kim.
Yeah, let's get Harry Kim. Let's get some more legacy cameos. But
yeah, that he walk by and like they're all getting promoted. It's like, oh man, it's like he keeps going by as an ensign. 45-year-old ensign or whatever.
Yeah, just a forever ensign.
Yeah.
Now like Rutherford and Tendi and Boimler and Mariner all outrank them because we know they're getting promoted in season 4. So
yeah, to something beyond ensign.
But that being said, I guess that does bring our show to a close. But again, big thank you to the Tex-Trek Patreon supporters. That's Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchy, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Earl Grey Trekkie, Quarkspar, Benjinium, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, and our anonymous supporters. We'll have the Thursday first reaction stream to our new season 4 episodes. They've announced the names of them. We have Tuvix, but it's spelled Twovix, so a sequel to Tuvix, and that's going to be followed by a Harlan Ellison paraphrase. But
yeah,
I have no bones, I must flee, or something like that. It's
I have no bones, so I must flee.
Yeah, we were thinking it was kind of similar to the Harlan Ellison. Is it a short story called "I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream"?
Yeah, I think so.
Sounds like that Metallica song One. Speaking of Metallica. But yeah, so the first reaction stream to those episodes Thursday, and then come back for the deep dive discussion with me and Aaron Friday night, where you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Look for the Drawn to Trek podcast or the Tex-Trek podcast.
I'm looking forward to doing Easter eggs or Gorn eggs, I guess we can call them now.
And some other Drawn to Trek stuff happening in the future also. We've been discussing some other content that might roll out in addition to the weekly Lower Decks coverage. So eventually we're gonna have to talk about Prodigy. We're gonna have Prodigy somewhere. # Save Star Trek Prodigy. So we're gonna get it at home and we're gonna talk about that show, and that's gonna be a lot of fun. But until next week, as always, Is there like a drawn to track closing that we could come up with, like a like stay animated or something like that? Maybe we can brainstorm something.
I think at the end we would put the clip of Freeman saying, "Don't give me that sarcastic Vulcan salute." That was sort of how we ended all of the episodes.
Okay.
But don't do that.
But until then, until we see you again, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek, and follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.